Hello, I'm Greg Harrison with the USDA Market News Service here in St. Joe, Missouri with your National Feeder Cattle Summary this week. We're looking at cattle prices this week, totally different week than it was last week. Yearlings this week traded mostly steady to $3 higher. Calves, for the most part, were steady to $5 higher. There were instances around through the Midwest and Southeast where you've seen some markets steady up to $5 lower. After last week's emotional, draining week of trading and big moves to the downside in the commodity and equity markets, feeder cattle and fed cattle prices last week were some of the biggest victims of last week's purge. Calf and yearlings definitely had some room for corrections to the higher side this week, with most of the auctions this week showing some stability and strength in their prices. Now on the yearlings, helping to prices for the yearling cattle with still the best prices seen in the northern plains is the availability of yearlings. Still seeing some very tight supplies of good yearlings, and it's created really a good competition from cattle buyers to procure yearling cattle at this time. In a lot of your major grazing areas, supplies are dwindling, and we're seeing just really very few green yearlings remaining out there. And in the case in McCook, Nebraska, at the Tri-State Livestock Auction on Monday, they sold 306 head of good top quality yearling steers, averaging 891 pounds, that sold at $214.10 a pound. The calf market last week, it just took the full brunt force of last week's losses, and they were pretty steep last week, $10 to $20 lower, and seeing a lot of calves trading $25 to $30 lower, and seeing just the majority of the steer calves right now, and 5-weight steer calves trading from $240 to $260, quite a different story than what it was here just not that long ago. And for the most part too, we're seeing a lot of feeder cattle, calves and yearlings still feeling some pressure from the losses in the fed cattle market. We've seen in the past huge premiums being paid for feeders compared to the fat cattle market, and we're starting to see some reality checks over the last several weeks where feeders prices are dropping faster than the fat cattle prices. Packers right now are seeing some decent margins at this time, and they want to keep it as long as they can, and feed yards are trying to get some of it back, and as they're fighting lower bids. Retailers, on the other hand, they got at this time they're looking at beef demand going forward and make some concerns there as they plan on for the fall and going into the holidays about demand. And right now they're just content to keep all their inventories in check. And they're also seeing lower prices from large supplies of competing meats that keep also features changing. So in many ways, we still have some volatility out there in the markets. China has their financial woes, and that keeps bleeding into our equity markets and a lot of our commodity markets. And like last week's sell-off, maybe it shouldn't come as a surprise, but it's the impression that it leaves on the markets when it happens, as it keeps frames of minds and attitudes and positions changing fast. But looking at some regional weighted averages this week in the north central regions, steers weighing 700 pounds, trading about $6 higher than last week at $234.95, 700 to 800 pounds, about $1 lower at $215.22, and 800 to 900 pounds running steady at $208.53. In the south central regions, 500 to 600 pound steers, $3 higher at $236.33, 600 to 700 pounds, $2 higher at $220.29, 700 to 800 pounds, $3 higher at $210.45, and 800 to 900 pound steers $1 higher at $199.01. Southeast regions, 400 to 500 pound steers running about $2 higher at $241.26, and 500 to 600 pounds running about $1 lower at $220.82. Want to wish everyone a safe and happy Labor Day weekend, and hope to have good grilling weather in store for everyone. Thanks for listening. Be back with you next week.